Imagine this. The US suddenly slaps tariffs on steel and aluminum, shaking up decades of smooth trade with its closest neighbor, Canada. President Trump's America First policy aimed to protect American jobs by taxing foreign goods, hoping to revive US manufacturing. But when the US imposed a 25% tariff on steel and 10% on aluminum, even from Canada, it felt like a personal betrayal. The US and Canada, economic siblings with deeply intertwined industries, were suddenly at odds. This wasn't just a policy tweak, it was headline news, sending shockwaves through both economies. Steel and aluminum are everywhere, from cars to skyscrapers, so the impact was immediate and massive. For Canada, the tariffs hit hard, threatening jobs and decades-old partnerships. The move left Canadians wondering why their closest ally was treating them like a rival. And so began a trade dispute that would test the bonds between two of the world's closest neighbors. Steel and aluminum were the main targets, but the tariffs soon spread to other products, disrupting industries on both sides of the border. US factories hoped for a boost, but the reality was complicated. Canadian factories, especially in places like Hamilton, suddenly faced steep new costs to sell to their biggest customer. The US supply chains that crossed the border multiple times were thrown into chaos. A Canadian aluminum plant might ship to Ohio, then Michigan, then back to Canada. Now every step was more expensive. These industries weren't just competitors, they were partners, sharing production and jobs. The tariffs didn't just hurt big corporations, they threatened entire communities built around these industries. Businesses scrambled to adapt, but uncertainty reigned. The economic experiment was underway, and everyone was caught in the middle. It was clear. You can't untangle decades of cooperation overnight. Beyond the headlines, real people felt the pain. Some US steelworkers saw a short-term boost, but many more workers in industries that use steel faced layoffs as costs soared. American companies making cars, appliances, and machinery struggled with higher prices, passing costs to consumers, or cutting jobs. In Canada, entire towns built around steel and aluminum faced layoffs and uncertainty. The ripple effect hit truck drivers, suppliers, and local businesses. Everyone felt the strain. Stories emerged of family businesses on the brink and workers fearing for their futures. The tariffs weren't just numbers, they were livelihoods. Communities on both sides of the border realized how deeply connected they were. The trade war wasn't just about economics, it was about people, families, and the fabric of everyday life. In a global economy, hurting one side meant hurting both. The lesson was clear: no one wins in a trade war. Canada didn't just complain, they hit back with their own tariffs, matching the US dollar for dollar. The Canadian government targeted iconic American products, bourbon, orange juice, ketchup, hitting politically sensitive regions. It was a strategic move, designed to get the attention of US politicians and voters. Canadian businesses and consumers rallied, launching a wave of Buy Canadian pride. Grocery shoppers checked labels, choosing Canadian-made products over American ones. The response was united and determined, surprising many in the US. Canada showed it could stand up for itself, using both government action and grassroots support. The message was clear. Economic pain would be felt on both sides. The trade war became a test of national resolve and clever strategy. Canada's polite but firm response made the world take notice. Nothing captured Canada's response like the ketchup story. When tariffs made American Heinz ketchup pricier, Canadian brand French's seized the moment, promoting its homegrown tomatoes. Canadians flocked to buy French's, clearing shelves and posting their patriotic choices online. Ketchup became a symbol of resistance. One Ontario man even got a French's ketchup tattoo. The movement spread to other products, beer, cheese, and more. Buy Canadian wasn't just a slogan, it was a real shift in shopping habits. Ordinary people felt empowered, turning grocery shopping into a quiet protest. The ketchup caper showed the power of consumers in a trade war. It proved that even small choices can have a big impact. In the end, the trade fight was fought not just by politicians, but by everyday people. The trade war left confusion and frustration in the US, as businesses hurt by tariffs pressured politicians for relief. In Canada, anger turned to unity and pride, fueling the Buy Canadian movement. The world watched as Canada's smart, targeted response became a playbook for others facing US tariffs. After months of pain and negotiation, the tariffs were lifted, but the scars remained. The episode proved that in a global economy, hurting your neighbor means hurting yourself. The US and Canada learned that their economies are too intertwined for isolationist policies to work. Canada's strategic, united response showed that even a smaller country can stand its ground. The power of national pride, and a little ketchup, helped turn the tide. The real lesson: good neighbors solve problems together, not by building walls. In the end, cooperation beats conflict, every time.